Uranus transit Venus happens once, I'm talking about the more serious transit, the ones that the person can feel, usually the square, the opposition, and the conjunction. The conjunction is the 0 degrees when Uranus is passing exactly over the degree of your Venus, and this is the most strongest one. Then the next one is the opposition when Uranus is passing 180 degrees from the position of your Venus, and it's quite powerful, just as powerful, a little bit more stressful though than the conjunction. And then is the square, which is when Uranus is passing 90 degrees away from Venus, and it's another stressful and aspect which is felt less than the other two, probably around 25% strength compared to the opposition and the conjunction. And any one of those three, opposition, conjunction, or square, happens once every 21 or 2 years, so it's quite rare when Uranus aspects via a strong aspect your Venus. And what happens then in your life? Well, the process takes usually around a year, sometimes a year and a half, sometimes a little bit less. It's different. And usually the process starts a few months before Uranus hits your Venus for the first time and concludes a few months after Uranus hits Venus for the third time. Sometimes it's even 4 or 5 times. Sometimes it's 3 times, for every person is different. And this is approximately 1.5 years when you are going through a total change of your values, because Venus rules the values, what we value, how we evaluate the situation, how we make decisions, how we judge what is worthy and what is not. Uranus wants to totally break that and put a new construction and new way of evaluating things in our life. For instance, and relationships are the first and most palpable things that Venus affects, because of what we value is what we would want, what kind of partner we would want in our life. And if you've always, for instance, been someone who is very careful about relationships and who was very, who had very walls around them and trying to protect themselves from allowing others, and who was very much into serious and very straightforward relationships and didn't want anything complex or anything too wild. When Uranus comes, actually it can break the mold, and all of a sudden you can find yourself going into a much more radical relationships than normal, much more, if you've been very cautious about relationships before, all of a sudden your walls of protection fall off due to normally meeting someone who is very different than you would normally date. Uranus would bring someone very unusual as a relationship, or very unusual experience as a relationship. And for instance, as we said, you've been very preserved and cautious, you break free, and you might even go from relationship to relationships, because Uranus doesn't always give stability. It's like it's an on and off energy. It's like an electricity boat. It's stop and go. So you can attract a relationship, so you can jump someone who comes, very strong feelings, and then disappears after a few months from your life, then another person comes, or it can be one person who comes and goes, or things are a bit unstable and insecure there. Or if you're in a stable relationship, things can start getting shaken a bit. Things get, quite electrified around the relationship. There can be disruptions because Uranus is a disruptive planet. And for instance, I've